Welcome back. We're doing more dimension drawings here today. We're going to take a look at number 4. And as you can see from our short little description in this lesson, you're going to practice adding center lines and using them in the dimensioning process. So I've gone ahead and I've downloaded both my curved parts, curved part 1, curved part 2. This video is going to cover curved part 1. You're going to work independently on curved part 2. And I've also, added another sheet to my drawing here. So I've got my blank sheet, which I created by hitting this new sheet button. I've got the bottom part populated. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put curved part number 1 in here. So I'm going to go to my base view. And it's not opening up to it because I've got a few tabs open down here. So I'm going to go hunt for my curved part number 1 in my IED folder. All right, and there it is. So I'm going to go ahead and increase the scale to 1:1. That seems to be a good size for most of these drawings. And I want to give this a little thought when I pick my front view. Thinking back to those guidelines you looked at in the previous assignment, I think this is going to show me probably the best contour looking at it the way I am right now. But when I go to project out my right side view, I'm going to see these square corners as my solid object lines. And I'm going to end up with additional hidden lines back here for these two rounded, or one rounded and one chamfered corner. So I don't want to position it this way. I'm going to take my view cube and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees so my front view is here. That way when I look at my right side view, these will appear as solid object lines. And so there's one view, there's my top view, there's my isometric. I'm going to say okay. And I like to make the isometrics a little smaller so they don't get confused for part of the multi-view. Also give me a little more room for dimensions. So we're going to go half scale and we'll click that third style tile to shade it in. All right, so I'm going to click this one and just drag it out of the way. Now, what I'd like you to do is inspect your drawing. We didn't totally eliminate hidden lines from here. Make sure your right side view does have hidden lines in it. That's telling us where this cylinder is on the back side of this big cylinder we can see. If you don't have a hidden line showing up there, you can double click your base view and just make sure that the hidden lines are turned on for all 3 of your views. Okay, so if this hidden line's removed is selected, you're not going to see hidden lines. So if the hidden line's not there, make sure hidden line is selected on the style tile. All right. And then I'm going to save before I get too far into this so I don't lose what I've got. Now we're going to take and we're going to put some center lines onto each of our views. We're going to use a tool called the automated center line. So I'm going to come to my top view, get those red polka dots around it, and I will right click. Let's try that again. I'm going to right click and it should bring up all these different options. I want to go to automated center lines. You're going to do this 3 times on this drawing. So the first apply to is already picked. We're going to apply it to hole features. We also want to apply to filleted features. We want to apply to cylindrical features. And we want to apply it to revolved features. These last 2 deal with sheet metal. We don't get into sheet metal in IED, so we're going to ignore those. I want to project it in its axis normal and its axis parallel. You might think of this as like the circular or the cylinder view. We want to see center lines in both. And then I'm going to come over here and check circular patterns too. We haven't done a circular pattern today, but I'd like you to start off by just getting in the habit of clicking that one. Then we'll come down to the bottom and we'll say okay. And you can see it put 1, 2, 3 center lines on my drawing. If you don't have those 3 center lines, you can right click on this view, go to automated center lines and double check you got 1 through 4 pressed down, both 1 and 2 over here, and the circular pattern feature. And now we get to do that 2 more times. So unfortunately, when I go to my new view, it doesn't remember. So I'm going to click 1, 2, 3, and 4. Both my projections and my circular pattern. I'll click OK. You should see 2 vertical center lines in this view. Then we'll come over to the right side view and do the same thing. Automated center lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, both projections, circular pattern. We'll click OK. Right, and over here we should see a center line going through that cylinder and a center line over here for this filleted curve. And we've just done a bunch of work, so I'm going to click the save button. You should too if you haven't in a while. And now we're going to dimension to this, and when we dimension a cylinder or a hole, we always dimension to the center point of that cylinder to kind of give its location. So we're going to use the base, excuse me, we're going to use the base, I'm sorry, we're going to go to annotate, and we're going to use the baseline tool. I've made too many videos today. Now we're going to click on the outside edges first, just like we would have when we were dimensioning a square object. And then I'm going to come back and dimension the features inside. And so on this one, I just want to dimension to my 2 center lines. Then I'm going to right click, left click, and I'm going to drag these up until I've got my polka dots telling me I'm kind of my optimal distance away. And so it seemed like my optimal distance away is touching my top view. We're going to fix that in just a second. And so I'm going to left click, then I'll right click, left click create. And like I said, this was kind of bothering me that they're touching. So I'm going to come up here and just move this top view up a little bit so I've got some space in between for those dimensions. I might even take this view and drag it over a little bit, see if I can get me even more room in there. Okay, if you run out of room for dimensions, you might have to go back and change this to a smaller scale. That might happen to us here today. So I've got information about the length of my object. I've also got information about the location for the center points left to right on these cylinders. Now I'm going to grab my baseline tool and give some information about the height. So I'm going to do the overall height first by clicking the outside edge. Then I'll come click this center line. Now I'm going to right click, left click. I want to put these dimensions in between adjacent views. Right, that's looking good. In the top view up here, I'm going to give some information about the depth. So again, I'm going to use the baseline. I'll click on the outside of my object first. I'm going to click on this center line. Now you'll notice these 2 center lines line up, so I just need to pick one for my dimensions. Okay, and then I'm going to right click. I'll go to create, and that's right that. I don't think I had my baseline tool picked. I wish I could say I was making all these mistakes to show you can learn, but they're honestly just happening to me. So we've got those picked. The other one I'm going to do is click this diagonal line here so I can get some information about how far back this chamfer or this squared or straight edge goes back here. So now I'll right click, left click on continue. I'll go out till I've got polka dotted lines, right click, left click, right click. And there we got some information on that. Now this corner here is a curve, so I'm going to go to just the regular dimension tool now, and I'm going to click on my corner. I'm going to try to avoid the center point. I'm going to go down just below it, and I'll click, and then I'm going to drag this radius dimension out here. Now, a lot of times this menu will pop up the first time you dimension a drawing. It gets kind of annoying after a while, so I'm going to uncheck edit dimension when created. If you need to edit a dimension, you can always right click on it and it will bring you back to this menu. And so I'm going to go check my rules because I know I've got a cylinder here and I always forget if I'm supposed to dimension it where it looks like a circle or where it looks like a cylinder. So I'm going to go back to my project lead the way page, and in that last assignment we had our multi-view drawing reminders. Remember, there were some rules for dimensioning and guidelines for the best front view. So I'm just scrolling through here, looking for cylinders. Dimensions should be All right, so it's not really giving me any rules on cylinders. It says holes should be located by their center line. Holes should be located in a view that shows their feature as a circle. I thought there was a rule for cylinders as well, but as I'm scrolling through here, I don't see it. So we're going to go and we're going to use this dimension tool again, just to dimension the radius, because we know where the center point on both of these cylinders is, but we don't know what the diameter is. So I'm going to use the dimension tool and I'll click the circle, and I'm going to drag off a line like this. I'm going to put this one over to the left so I've got room for the next one. And I'll click here and I'll drag off another leader line telling me what the overall diameter of that object is. So now as I'm looking at this, I think the only other dimension I'm missing, I would need to reproduce this part, is I know how far down this is. This is, 2 inches from this top edge. I'm not sure what angle this goes off at. So I'm going to add one more dimension. I'm going to use the dimension tool and I'm going to click this flat edge. Then I'm going to click this angled line. And if I pull my cursor out towards the right, you can see it gives me that 45-degree angle. So I'm going to click there and lock that in. So now as I'm looking here, I think I've got all the needed dimensions. I didn't actually put any dimensions on this view, but this one's kind of a nice one because it shows us we've got the straight edge here, the rounded edge here. This is one where maybe it's not necessary, but we're going to go ahead and keep it just because we've got it in that view. So that looks like a completed drawing. I'm going to go ahead and click save. You should do the same. If you had issues with any of these or you compare yours to mine and it doesn't look the same, do your best to edit it. If you've got questions, ask me. If you feel like you're ready to move on, you're going to go back to the Place Views tab, add yet another new sheet. And once you got that new sheet added, you're going to come back to the classroom page and work on that second curve drawing located in this assignment. So go ahead and get curve number 2. Once you've done that, see your instructor. We will probably begin doing some peer review of our drawings at this point.